This is Heavy Thrash Events of Nasty Mail Production Channel at YouTube. I am back again. And of course, we left out with Power of the Night. I kind of teased in the Sirens video that about reviewing the first 5 Savatage releases. And I kind of was teetering around maybe, thinking, does that include Fight for the Rock? Well, that was just me building up. Yes. You'd be thinking, why am I reviewing this as part of, USPM Month? Why am I? Well, I think it kind of deserves some sort of talk. Sure, every US power metal band is going to have a release that isn't, looked down fondly. Fight for the Rock is one of those. And it's not going to be the first time, or the last time, I shall say, that a US power metal band released a very weak album. I'm going to be talking about some of those. Oh yeah, that's coming within this month. And I think you know what band that might be next that did release a album that kind of was focusing towards the sort of radio a bit. So, Fight for the Rock. For the longest time, I remember, just reading all the reviews and all the stuff saying how this is looked down as one of the worst Savatage releases. And for the longest time, I always heard the word hair metal. That always got thrown around every time I read a review for the sound. They all say this is the hair metal moment of Savatage. This is the hair metal moment of the band. This is them definitely kind of trying to sound like Rat or whatever. Until I listened to the album, which was just last night. Sure left a bit of an impression on me. Was it good? Was it bad? Well, before I get into more of this, this was released in 1986 on June 30th. This is the second, for the band being on Atlantic Records. After their debut on Atlantic Records being produced by Max Norman, they then ditched Max Norman for a new producer. Who doesn't come to my head at this point? Do I give a shit? No. Does it look like? No. Actually, yes. So, before listening to this album, I did hear Power of the Night, which I've also heard wasn't nearly as weak. Wasn't nearly as good as an album, but I can see why it's not looked as, one of the band's, mighty moment, as I put it. So, of course, there's a song in there called Hard for Love, which I kind of thought Fight for the Rock was going to sound like. It was going to sound like Hard for Love. Not. For people that want to throw around the hair metal tag, how about you start listening to actual hair metal bands instead, because this isn't as much of a hair metal album as I thought it was going to be. To me, this still sounds like Savatage. It still does. It doesn't sound like any other band. It's not like they're trying to sound like Rat or Motley Crue or Bon Jovi or some other fucking, hair metal god of the fucking time. It doesn't. It's kind of similar with Saxon, how they kind of took on that sort of commercial sounding metal sound, or the, as I'd rather put it, radio metal sound that was presented during the 80s on Innocent Is No Excuse. Even though that album still sounded like Saxon, it was just their take on the sound and style. Same thing that's kind of done with Savatage. To me, this is a melodic metal album that actually is very unfocused, I shall say, because at least, but I will though say, it's not as goofy as Celtic Frost's Cold Lake, but it's not nearly as unfocused as Saxon's Innocent Is No Excuse. It's an album that's definitely kind of between there. It's like it wants to, go for a more melodic sound. It wants to do that, but at times it ends up slamming itself into a complete wall. And there's definitely reasons. Sure, album starts out pretty good with the title track and going into... Wait, a re-recorded version of Out on the Streets? What the fuck? Yes. They end up re-recording Out in the Streets that ended Sirens. And it's not nearly as good. Even when I re-looked at the track listing, even after I got done listening to the track, I then was thinking, wait, isn't this off of Sirens? To me, even when listening to it, I didn't even think of the song off of Sirens. It's like it was a whole different song in its own. How? Again, the strike one for Fight for the Rock. Strike one. Of course. We haven't gone to strike two. We haven't gone to strike three. Definitely, probably one of the few most unfocused moments for Fight for the Rock. The second unfocused moment is actually their cover of Badfinger's Day After Day, which I would have lived without. Why was it down here? I don't know. It's like the band was, losing ideas for cover songs. It's like, we have to come up with another cover song. Oh wait, Day After Day by Badfinger. Let's do it. It's like with Judas Priest and Johnny B. Good. It's like, hey, we like our cover. How about we just put on Ram It Down instead of just being an exclusive to the Johnny B. Good soundtrack? Wrong. Fucking wrong idea, guys. This is definitely one of the few really low points for Fight for the Rock. It's actually the cover track of Day After Day, which just sucks. Well, of course, there's definitely some good moments, such as Hide. Yeah, there's definitely some good moments on here. Fuck. Yeah, it's... Some titles don't come to me, some don't. Whatever. I'm not fucking the needle drop. So, I'm not. But this isn't the only cover song on this album. They do end up covering Wishing Well by Free, which is actually the only good cover song on this album, and that isn't saying too much. It isn't bad, but it also kind of feels a little unfocused. This album isn't too bad, but I wouldn't consider it all that much of a hair metal album, because I have heard hair metal bands, and to me this doesn't sound all that much of a hair metal album at all. I think the people throw that are just people who just does not want to admit that it's a melodic metal album. It's not even like Dokken. It doesn't sound like any of those. It's... While I say that Power of the Night isn't really the strongest Savatage album, Fight for the Rock also isn't nearly as strong as even the albums before it. Power of the Night is definitely a much more focused album compared to Fight for the Rock, and even I just said that Power of the Night is a bit of an unfocused album. But there is a glimmer of hope. Yes, there's a glimmer of hope after Fight for the Rock. And we all know what album that is, so stay tuned for that video, which is coming right up next. So, before I leave this off, how about I say that I hope you liked the video, and if you have heard Fight for the Rock, what are your opinions on this album? Do you think it's a good album, or do you think it's definitely kind of a very weak and very unfocused release? So, everything goes down in the comment section. So, until then, I'll see you in a moment. Later.